This story is almost unbelievable, full of ups and downs that could be a movie. I've been happily married for over 30 years, or so I thought. I have 3 beloved children and owned a convenience store gas station. I'm not rich, but make a good living. A few years ago, my 28-year-old son was hospitalized with a kidney problem. He's married with 2 children. My wife Annabelle, Annie, and I were terrified for his life. The doctors said he might need a transplant if his condition didn't improve. They suggested we talk to family members about donation possibilities. Without telling Annie, I got tested to see if I was a match. The results showed I wasn't compatible. Shocked, I asked the doctor why, considering he was my son. The doctor, embarrassed by my outburst, asked me to come into his office. "Mr. Weller, the test shows you're not his biological father. We're redoing the test to confirm," he said. In shock, I couldn't tell Annie yet. Questions about my other children, Janice and Mandy, raced through my mind. Janice was 26, Mandy 20. I hoped the doctor was wrong. 2 days later, the doctor brought good news. Brad's kidneys were responding to treatment, and he wouldn't need a transplant. Relieved, everyone cried with joy. I still hadn't told Annie about the test. The next day, I asked Annie, Janice, and Mandy for DNA samples, explaining it would help in future medical issues. Annie was nervous but agreed, as did the others. I also collected samples from Janice's family. The hospital confirmed Brad wasn't biologically mine. I asked them to analyze the other samples. "Mr. Weller, are any of them your family?" "They're all my family. I need to know if Janice and Mandy are my biological children," I replied. Brad was released from the hospital a few days later. After a week of recovery, he could return to work. Everyone was relieved he didn't need dialysis or a transplant. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. I needed to know if my daughters were biologically mine. Annie noticed my odd behavior and asked about it almost every night. I told her I was just thinking about our children, which was partly true. One evening, I came home to find Annie crying over some papers from the hospital. "When did you do it, and why?" she asked. "I got tested to see if I could donate my kidney to our son. The doctor said I wasn't his biological father, so I had tests done on the girls too." Annie revealed, "Janice isn't yours, but Mandy is." She was crying hard. "What happens now, Dan?" I didn't know. After 30 years of marriage, I had just learned 2 of my children weren't mine. I told Annie, "We need to talk. Maybe we'll stay together, or maybe we'll split up." "Dan, that was over 28 years ago. Can't we leave the past behind?" "No, we can't. You had an affair. I need to know who I've been raising. Janice and Brad are siblings, so this wasn't a one-time thing. Who were you having an affair with?" "It was Harvey. It was stupid and wrong, but it's over." "Harvey, our best friend who died 25 years ago? Did his wife Mary know? Did she join you?" "Please, Dan, let's not discuss this. I love you. This is ancient history. Can't we move on?" "Are you out of your mind? We got married, and within a year you started sleeping with Harvey. I raised his child as my own. If he hadn't died, you'd probably still be with him. Explain this." Annie was crying, but I wanted the truth. "I know you and Harvey were friends." "I always loved him, but he chose Mary. I loved you too, but not as much. After he married Mary, I was depressed. You asked me to marry you, and I did it partly out of spite. I wanted to show Harvey I could move on. Then we started an affair. You were often away, and Harvey would come by. It just happened. He stopped seeing me after I got pregnant with Brad. He asked if the baby was his, and I told him I didn't know but wouldn't tell you unless he married me. He laughed and said you could raise his baby. Do you really think I'm that stupid? It just happened." "What just happened?" "If you think I'll believe it just happened, you must be crazy." "What about Janice? Did the same thing happen to her?" "I told him he couldn't come over unless you or Mary were here. I had feelings for him, but he was using me for lovemaking. One day he forced himself on me and threatened to tell you about Brad. He hurt me and said he hoped he got me pregnant again. I couldn't tell you because I didn't want to lose you. After Janice was born, Harvey died in a car accident. I was sad but relieved. I could finally put it behind me and focus on us. I loved you more and more. We had a good life, didn't we?" Annie asked. "Yes, our marriage was good, but now I see it was based on lies. You cheated on me, married me while loving another man, and had children with him. Now you expect me to forget about it. I can't. I'm going to see a lawyer and start divorce proceedings." "Dan, you can't. What about our kids? What will you tell them?" "You can tell them. And just so you know, I don't believe you were molestated. You would have continued the affair if Harvey hadn't died. You have a week to tell me your story. After that, I'll tell them the truth. I assume Brad and Janice don't know I'm not their biological father." No one knows but me, and now you. Please, Dan, they love you. Don't hurt them by telling them their real father is a man they've never met. I am their father. I've raised them, and that won't change. We'll both stay here until the divorce is finalized, unless you have another lover. That's inappropriate, Dan, and you know it. No, the problem is I've been with you for 30 years, and I don't know you. I'll move into the guest bedroom. I don't want anything to do with you. Annie wept as I relocated to the guest room. 2 days later, a call came from the store. Annie's car had crashed after speeding and failing to navigate a turn. Tragically, she died on impact. The sheriff probed for any issues, but I reported none, classifying it as an accident pending autopsy. Breaking the news to our children was agonizing for us all, fueling my doubts about whether it was truly an accident or something more sinister. Days later, the autopsy confirmed it was indeed accidental. At her funeral, I mourned deeply, despite our separation. 3 decades of shared history left me grappling with unresolved emotions. Choosing to keep her affair secret, I resisted consulting a lawyer. The day after her funeral, I asked my daughters and daughter-in-law to divide Annie's belongings, keeping only a few cherished family photos. Tormented by what-ifs, I pondered the consequences of my actions and wondered if things could have been different, or if fate had simply intervened on that fateful day. Update. This happened 2 years ago, just before the holidays. I found myself alone again. My son and oldest daughter live about 100 miles away, and I told them I could visit for a day or two. Mandy, a senior in college, planned to go to England with friends for the holidays. She worried about me being alone, but I assured her I had been living alone for 2 years and spent my days at the service station, never really alone. One day, while watching TV, I saw a commercial about donating $24 a month to help a child in a third world country. It made me skeptical about where the money actually goes. The next day, I asked our local priest, Pastor Jim, if the church had a Christmas campaign to help local families. Yes, Dan, we do. Do you have a family in mind? He asked. No, I need the name of a family I can help, I replied. Jim suggested a young widow with 3 children whose husband was eliminated by a criminal. She had moved to our town for a fresh start. Thanks, Jim. I'll come by later to get the name, I said. Pastor Jim understood my intent. Though not a regular churchgoer, I wanted to make a difference. I took the name Carmela Wilson from the tree at church. She worked as a waitress at Joe's restaurant where I often ate. I decided to visit Joe's diner to talk to her. At Joe's, I looked around and saw Carmen, who smiled and said she'd be right over. Carmen was in her early 30s, pleasant-looking, with shoulder-length dark hair. She wasn't thin or fat, just an attractive woman with a nice smile. "What can I do for you?" she asked. "Just a cup of coffee and some conversation, if you don't mind." "Sure, for coffee, but I'm not sure about the conversation," she replied. "I'm sorry, I'm not good at talking to women. This isn't a flirtation. I picked your name from the church tree and want to be your friend for the holidays." "Look, I'm not sure what you want. I'll just get your coffee." She spoke to Joe, who nodded, then returned with my coffee. "Okay, Joe says you're fine. I get hit on a lot and don't need that." "So what do you mean by holiday friend?" "The church put my kids' names on the tree for Christmas, but they didn't mention this." "This is my idea. If you prefer, I can just buy gifts for your kids." I was watching TV and saw a commercial about donating $24 a month to help children in other countries. It got me thinking, I want to help a family through Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm not rich, but I can afford to help one family, and I chose yours. Carmen's eyes welled up. "Are you serious? I was so worried about my kids this year. You know, my husband was..." "I know, Carmen. He was homicided. Please let me help you. If I'm interfering, just tell me, and I'll back off." "Why are you doing this? Don't you have family to help?" "My wife died 2 years ago in a car accident." "It's okay, Carmen. My holidays have been pretty lonely, and I want to help someone else be happy this year. My children are grown and doing fine, so what do you say? Can we be friends for the holidays?" "You have a kind face, Dan. For the sake of my kids, I'll say yes. Please, no tricks. We've been through a lot." "Let's start by restocking your coffee and figuring out your needs." She poured more coffee and said she needed to get back to work, but agreed to talk after her shift. The next day, I asked her out to dinner, but she said she needed to be with her kids. Instead, she invited me to her home for dinner. "I'll bring pizza. Is pepperoni and cheese okay?" She smiled. "That's great, but bring 2 pizzas. My 8-year-old can eat half of one himself." When I visited her place, I realized she lived in a housing project. These places often have social services support, but are not the best environments due to pills, lovers, and other issues. Now, more than ever, I wanted to help Carmen and her children. Her 8-year-old son met me at the door. He was a cute boy and asked what I wanted. I said I was the pizza delivery guy and that his mom had invited me. He grinned and said, "Mom said her friend is bringing pizza today. We don't get pizza from the store very often." As I entered, 2 other children ran up shouting, "Pizza, pizza, pizza, Mommy, the pizza place is here," a 6-year-old yelled. Carmen appeared from the other room, having tidied up. "Children, where are your manners? I thought I taught you better." "Sorry, Mom, we were just excited," her oldest son said. "We don't get visitors often. Can we have pizza now?" "Kids, this is Dan, a friend of mine. You can call him Uncle Dan or Mr. Dan," I interrupted. "Just call me Dan. What's your name?" The oldest replied, "My name is Mike, and I'm 8 years old." The second one said, "I'm Mark, and I'm 6. This is my little sister Molly." Molly added, "I know who I am. My name is Molly, and I'm 4, soon to be 5. I go to kindergarten, and I'm very smart." She looked a lot like her mom. We all sat down to eat pizza. The furniture was old, and they didn't have much. The TV was on, but the picture was poor. While the kids ate and watched cartoons, I asked Carmen what help she needed. "Oh my God, I wasn't prepared for this. My kids and I are doing fine. They want what other kids have, but I can't afford it. You've seen our TV with the bad picture. We buy clothes secondhand. They're great kids, but I can't buy bikes or anything that might get stolen, so any gift would be appreciated." "Okay, I'll see what I can do." "Mike, how about going to the movies on Saturday? There's a new Harry Potter movie." "Wow, that would be great. Mom, can we go?" "Maybe if you behave this week." "Dan, you know this is for you too, Carmen. Maybe we'll eat at McDonald's afterward." Molly said, "I like McDonald's. They have Happy Meals and a playground." "All right, Molly, be good for Mommy, and we'll go." The kids were thrilled, and Carmen was smiling. I felt good making them happy. We spent weekends taking the kids to fun places. I started eating lunch at Joe's and always sat in Carmen's section, leaving her big tips. "Dan, you don't need to do that. Just make my kids happy." "So you don't need the money?" I smiled. "That's not fair, Dan. I can use the money. I just feel awkward and indebted. Can I make you Thanksgiving dinner or something? I need to do something for you too." "I'll talk to the kids, see what's on our agenda, and call you back. Carmen, I do this because it makes me happy. I enjoy helping people who are trying to help themselves. Please don't feel like you owe me anything. Seeing the kids' faces is enough payback, and your smile is a bonus." She looked slightly embarrassed and turned away. Mandy came home one weekend and asked what was new. I told her about Carmen and how I was helping her. "Dad, do you think this is a good idea? You don't really know her." "Honey, helping someone and seeing those kids' faces gives me a new sense of purpose. I want you to meet Carmen and give me your honest opinion." "I don't know, Dad. It makes me uneasy. Isn't that a rough neighborhood for a single mom and her kids?" "Exactly. That's why I want to help them. You've grown up and don't need my help as much anymore, so I feel I should help someone else. I'll meet them, but I won't promise anything. I'll be honest with you." Mandy was worried, but agreed to meet them. On Saturday, I invited Carmen and the kids over. It was chilly, but I decided to grill. Carmen arrived in a beat-up car with the kids. As she unbuckled them, Mandy remarked sarcastically, "Nice car, Dad." "What would you say if she drove up in a new car?" I asked. "Great idea, Dad. This is for you." She smiled. Mike and Mark ran up to me. "Hey, Uncle Dan. Wow, you live here? What a big house." I introduced them to Mandy as Carmen got Molly out of the car. Mark, this is my daughter Mandy." "Hi, boys. Nice to meet you," Mandy said. "Hi, I'm Mike. I'm 8, and Mark is 6. That's our sister Molly. She's 4. Molly walked over, and I picked her up. Mandy watched me closely. "Molly is my little friend. She holds her own against her brothers, just like you used to," I laughed. "Carmen, this is Mandy, my pride and joy." They greeted each other, and I could almost see their minds working. Carmen smiled and said, "I know this is different. I know you have questions. Let's enjoy today, and I'll try to answer them. Your father is one of the nicest people I've met. Show me the kitchen, and we can cook together. Men think grilling is a whole meal, but we know better." Mandy looked at me and said, "I like her already, Daddy." They smiled, and we went inside. The kids explored the house, but were told to stay out of the drawers and not to run. They came back excitedly and told their mom everything they saw. They asked to watch my big screen TV, and I suggested we go to the store to pick out some DVDs. They eagerly agreed, and Molly asked to go too, but Carmen intervened. "Molly, why don't you stay here with Mandy and me to help us cook? We girls need to stick together," Carmen suggested. Molly then told me, "Uncle Dan, take the boys and go ahead. I have to help the girls cook. It was adorable coming from a 4-year-old. I assured her it was okay and promised to rent a movie just for her. I got The Little Mermaid, and she was thrilled. She asked Mandy and her mom to watch it with her and told the boys they could watch too if they were quiet, acting like a little adult. We decided to spend Thanksgiving at my house. Carmen and Mandy would cook, and I would keep the kids busy. I had a pool, closed for winter, and a hot tub, so the kids would bring their swimsuits to soak in it and then watch movies on the big TV. Mandy said she would contact Brad and Janice about the plans and let them know to bring swimsuits if they wanted to use the hot tub. After Carmen and the kids went home, Mandy and I talked. Dad, Carmen is very nice. She's hardworking and has been through a lot with her husband's homicide. I understand why you want to help her and the kids. She doesn't make excuses and genuinely cares about you. I hope she's at least a little grateful, I said. No, Dad. I mean, she might really maybe even love you. She didn't say that, did she? Dad, she didn't have to. Women can sense these things. I think you've fallen for her too. Just be careful. Mandy, I'm just happy to help. This is the happiest I've seen you since Mom died. I just want you to be aware. Mandy's observation hit home. I felt a deep connection to Carmen and her children. Brad and Janice hesitated, but eventually accepted my invitation for Thanksgiving, understanding my involvement with Carmen's family through the Church Tree Initiative. Carmen and Mandy orchestrated the arrangements smoothly over the ensuing weeks, with Carmen taking the lead in planning. Mandy's return home on Fridays became a routine, and I frequented Carmen's restaurant for lunch, often dropping by her apartment to visit the kids and bring treats. Carmen jokingly accused me of spoiling them. Despite my occasional discomfort seeing Carmen interact with customers, particularly men who flirted with her, I recognized my lack of entitlement to jealousy. Update. On Thanksgiving morning, Carmen and her kids showed up early, Carmen looking lovely in a simple outfit. They and Mandy were already busy in the kitchen. Mandy mentioned she'd invited her boyfriend, a paramedic still in college, to join them. They were headed to England for a hospital project over the holidays, leaving just before Christmas and returning in January. Brad, his wife Gail, and my grandkids arrived next. After hugs all around, the kids immediately inquired about the hot tub. I introduced them to Carmen's children, and they hit it off. Mandy introduced Brad and Gail to Carmen as a good friend, which pleased me. Brad seemed intrigued, while Gail offered to assist in the kitchen. Soon after, Janice and Rob arrived with their kids, who headed to the basement to play with the available toys and gadgets. While the women cooked, the men tried to stay out of their way. The guys were curious about Carmen, and I attempted to explain her situation without revealing too much of my own feelings. Turns out I wasn't very subtle about it. She looks good, Dad. How old is she? About my age? Brad asked. She's 31, Brad. She's a wonderful person and deserves some help. Rob added, Dad, aren't you afraid she might fall in love with you, or you with her? Look, I'm a widower, and she's a widow. If something happens, so be it. Dad, this is kind of inappropriate and personal. Brad, as my son, I'll tell you. No, I haven't even tried to kiss her. She's a wonderful woman, and I care about her. I'm sorry, Dad. I know it's none of my business. You must miss Mom. It's been 2 years. This has nothing to do with your mother. I'm lively, and if I find someone attractive, it's my business. Let's change the subject and check on the kids. We went downstairs to watch the kids. Carmen's children got along well with mine. Molly kept coming up to talk to me, which bothered Brad, but Rob found her sweet. Mandy brought her boyfriend Ross down to meet everyone. After introductions, Mandy went back upstairs, and Ross joined our conversation. I met Mandy's friend, Carmen. She's nice. Mandy told me her husband was homicided. I introduced Carmen's kids to Ross. Good kids. Too bad about their father. It's great you're helping them, Mr. Weller. Thanks, Ross. I picked their name off the church tree. So, what's new with you? School and work must be busy. Yes, but we're going on a trip soon. It's work-related, but I'll be with Mandy. How are you and Mandy doing? Brad asked. Ross looked at me, then back at Brad. I love her and plan to propose in front of Big Ben in England. Mr. Weller, do I have your permission? Ross, you don't need my permission. Mandy is capable of making her own decisions. If you need my blessing, you have it. Should I ask her? I think so, but don't mention it yet. I'll see if she's ready. I love her, but I want a yes. Our lips are sealed, Ross. Good luck. The afternoon went wonderfully. Dinner was fantastic, and everyone enjoyed themselves. The kids took turns in the hot tub, but no adults joined them. Carmen told me, maybe another time, and I held her to that. As the evening ended, Mandy and Ross left to be alone. I helped Carmen clean up and Janice and Gail joined in. Brad told Carmen it was nice meeting her and wished her luck before they left. Janice pulled me aside. "Dad, Carmen is great, but she's too young for you." "I'm helping her, Dad. She loves you. We asked if she was dating and she said she had a boyfriend." "Dad, you're that boyfriend. Otherwise she wouldn't have come today. Just be careful." After everyone left, Carmen gathered her kids and told me she had a great time and liked my family. I don't know why, but I leaned in and kissed her. It was a long, soft kiss. When we pulled away, she had tears in her eyes. "You didn't have to do that, Dan. I have to go." She gathered the kids, who quickly said goodbye and got into the car. I approached the car window and said, "I'm sorry I stepped out of line. Please forgive me." "The problem is, Dan, I've wanted you to do this for so long." She drove away, and I didn't hear from her for several days. I was worried about what I had done. On Monday, I went to the restaurant, but she wasn't there. Joe told me she had to take Molly to daycare and would be back soon. I planned to return at lunchtime, but had to cover a shift at work. I tried to give Carmen space, knowing I had overstepped. When I got home, my phone rang. It was Carmen. "Hi, Carmen." "I'm so sorry, Dan. Our apartment was broken into. They took everything, even the old TV. All we have left are our clothes." She cried. "I don't know what to do. The police are here taking a report. That's awful. Carmen, pack your clothes and the kids. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Everything will be fine, I promise." "Dan, I didn't know who else to call." "It's okay, Carmen. I'm glad you called. Now go pack and I'll be there soon." I drove over and found Carmen and the kids. Molly was crying and scared. I reassured her and decided to take them to my house. Carmen looked surprised. "I thought you were dropping us off at a motel for the night." "No, you're coming home with me. Pack your car and take my car with the kids. I'll drive yours." She didn't ask questions and did as I said. I spoke to the police officer, gave him my number, and explained they'd be staying with me. The officer said it was unlikely they'd recover anything. With his help, I got Carmen's car started and headed home. When I arrived, Carmen and the kids were on the porch. "It's open. Why didn't you come in?" "You weren't here and we didn't want to just walk in," Carmen replied. "Come on, boys, help me with the bags. Mike and Mark, take your stuff to the room with the bunk beds. Put Molly's and your mom's things in the front bedroom. If you're unsure, leave it in the living room." I turned to Carmen. "We need to talk. Molly, help the boys organize." "Dan, we can't live here." "What will your kids think?" "Carmen, you need help right now. Let's try this for a few days. You and Molly can share the front bedroom and the boys will be comfortable upstairs." "Dan, the boys have school and Molly has kindergarten. I have to work. Living here won't interfere. You might need to leave a bit earlier. I can help with school runs. Call the schools and explain the situation. Give them my name for drop-offs and pickups. It'll work out, I promise." "Dan, I care about you. I like you a lot. Your kids know that, and I need you to know that." "No, women just know it. Men think differently. Mandy, Janice, and Gail all know. I'm sorry, but I can't hide my feelings. I'll worry about my kids. You already have enough to worry about. And I'm not sorry I kissed you. Just thought you should know." I went upstairs to check the boys' room and ensure the dresser drawers were empty. Carmen assisted the boys in organizing their clothes, while Molly and I cleared out the dresser drawers in her room. Once everyone joined us, Molly asked if she could put away her belongings. While Carmen unpacked, I took the boys to prepare dinner. We settled on hot dogs and macaroni and cheese. During the meal, Carmen inquired about house rules. I explained that we would establish them gradually. Until then, the kids needed permission for everything, couldn't enter my room or office without invitation, and were to stay away from the closed pool. They could use the hot tub with permission and watch TV with approval. Keeping their rooms tidy was their responsibility. Carmen chuckled, knowing the boys weren't the tidiest, but at least the rules were clear. I looked at the kids, including Molly, who was always smiling at me. "Kids, this is your home now. Have fun, but always ask your mom if you're unsure about something." "Uncle Dan, what if we get hungry?" Mike asked. "Eat. Tomorrow your mom and I will buy snacks. You will always have food. Remember, your mom is the boss. If your mom says no, don't ask me, and vice versa. No means no. Any other questions?" Molly raised her hand, which made me laugh. "What, honey?" Carmen asked. "Are we allowed to play with the toys in the basement? Because they're not ours." "Honey, you can play with all the toys downstairs. We'll talk to Santa, and he'll probably get you some of your own," I told Molly. Molly raised her hand again. "Can I go play with them?" "Yes, honey, you go ahead. I'll join you in a bit," Carmen said. Molly headed downstairs, followed by the boys. One of them shouted, "Uncle Dan, can we turn on the TV?" I replied, "Yes, just not too loud." Carmen hugged me with tears in her eyes and said, "I don't know what I would have done without you." She wiped her tears, and we didn't kiss or hug again. I squeezed her hands and said, "I'll always be here for you. Let's see what the kids are doing." We went to the basement to join the kids. It felt like a family. It reminded me of when Annie and I used to watch the kids play. As it got late, Carmen told the children to take a bath and get ready for bed. She asked the boys to use the bathroom upstairs, and if Molly could use the main bathroom on the first floor. "Carmen, this is your home now. Of course, Molly can use the big tub and shower. I'll use the basement shower if needed. Please, make yourself comfortable." While Carmen got the kids ready for bed, I went to my office to work on my books. I saw Molly peeking in, dressed in her nightgown. "Hi, Molly. Do you need anything?" "I want to kiss you goodnight, but Mom said I can't come in until you say so." "Come on in, sweetie." She climbed into my lap, wrapped her arms around my neck, and kissed my cheek. "Good night, Uncle Dan," she said. "Good night, sweetheart. Where's Mommy?" "Upstairs arguing with Mikey and Marky. Let's go help." We went upstairs and found them mid-argument. "But Mom, Mike always gets his way because he's older. I just asked for the top bunk, and he said he gets to choose because he's older." Carmen looked at Mike. "Is that what you said, Mike?" "Yeah, but I'm older, so I should get to choose." "Mike, you're 2 years older, so you should be 2 years smarter. Is it worth arguing over which bed you sleep in? Why not share the top bunk and take turns?" Mike looked at Mark. "Okay, Mark, you can have the top bunk this month, and I'll take it next month. We'll swap every month. Deal?" "Yeah. Thanks, Mike," Mark said, climbing into the top bunk. "You feel good inside, don't you, Mike?" Carmen asked. "Yeah, I guess so, Mom." Carmen kissed her sons, then put Molly to bed. "I need to get back to my papers and get ready for bed myself," Carmen said. I went back to my office and heard the shower running, thinking about Carmen. When she finished, she came out in her nightgown and robe, her hair still wet. "Good night, Dan, and thanks for everything." I looked up and said, "Is there anything you don't look good in?" She smiled and headed to bed. I could smell her scent and took a few deep breaths, then continued working. Our first morning was hectic. Carmen asked me to call Joe and inform him she might be late. She needed to update the school and daycare about the change of address. When I called Joe, he questioned if I was serious about Carmen, expressing concern for her well-being. Being married for over 40 years, he didn't want her to get hurt. I reassured him that I would never injure Carmen or her kids. In the evening, we returned to her old apartment to gather her belongings, which weren't much. She returned her keys and informed the office about the move due to the break-in. Mike and Mark rode with me in the truck, while Carmen and Molly followed in her car. Upon our return, Carmen received a call from Mandy. After explaining the situation, Mandy requested to speak with me. "Dad, are you sure about this? You know she loves you, right? What should I have done, Mandy? Just give her money and tell her to manage on her own? I care about her. We're adults and haven't done anything wrong. I'm actually happy she and the kids are here. It's almost like the good old days. Dad, it's a fine line. I like Carmen as a sister, but you two need to be careful and understand what you're doing. Now, can I talk to Carmen again?" She talked to Carmen for about 20 minutes while the boys and I brought the rest of the stuff inside. "What did she want after I gave you your phone back?" I asked. "Mostly girl stuff, but she's worried about us." "What's there to worry about? We're adults. I'm in my 50s and can make my own decisions." "Dan, she knows how much I care about you. I told her that myself, and now you know. I tried to explain that I didn't know where this was going, but you helped me and the kids. I'm eternally grateful for that, but my feelings are stronger than my gratitude. Mandy is worried one of us will get hurt. I told her I would never come between you and your family." "Okay, let's take it one day at a time. Maybe time will help." Just then, Mike and Mark walked in. "Uncle Dan, can we go in the hot tub?" I looked at Carmen and then at the kids. "Only if your mom comes in. You can't go in alone." "Come on, Mom, please. It's warm and has lots of bubbles." "Okay, boys, get your swimsuits on. Molly, get yours and I'll be right there." She turned to me. "You set me up, didn't you?" I just smiled, and she smiled back, then put on a two-piece swimsuit. "Happy now?" she asked, smiling as she walked by. "I definitely agree. You rock any outfit. I'm willing to bet you look stunning even without clothes." I grinned. "Creep," she retorted, smiling as she headed for the hot tub. The kids eagerly awaited her. "Wow, she's even more beautiful," I pondered as she settled into the tub. "She seems to have it all." After a few minutes, I handed Carmen a drink. She smiled and said, "The water feels great. My body needed this." The kids watched the bubbles. "Thanks, Uncle Dan. This is really cool," Mike said. I took one more look at Carmen and went to finish my paperwork. Later, I heard everyone getting ready for bed. Soon, Molly peeked into my office, smiling and waiting for permission to enter. No one could reject this little girl, or her mom. Molly climbed into my lap, kissed me, and hugged me goodnight. "Uncle Dan, see you in the morning." I owned a gas station with self-service and a small grocery store. I no longer repaired cars, but occasionally used a tow truck. Carmen called, saying her car wouldn't start again, which was frustrating. I took the tow truck to the diner to pick her up. Two guys there offered to hook up her battery, clearly hitting on her. She told them no thanks, her friend was coming. When I arrived, they backed off. I told them, "Thanks, but I'll take it from here," which made them nervous. They left quickly. I hooked up her car, and she climbed into the truck, showing a lot of leg as she straightened her dress. "Thanks for coming, Dan. I told you I'd always be there for you. Are you upset someone else offered to help me?" "Yes and no. I want people to see how amazing you are, but it bothers me when they hit on you." "I didn't do anything wrong, Daniel." "I know. I was just answering your question. Besides, I don't own you. You told those guys I was your fiancé. Why?" I didn't answer. I just drove to the junkyard. "Why are we here, Dan?" "I'll give you a couple of $100 for that junk car. Get your personal stuff out and put it in this garbage bag. We'll sort it later." "What am I supposed to drive?" "We'll talk later. We need to hurry to get the kids." She loaded her stuff, and we got $300 for the car. We picked up Molly's car seat and headed home. I opened the garage and told Carmen she could drive my old car. It only had 8,000 miles and was 4 years old. I bought it with insurance money after Annie's accident. I usually drove the truck, so the car was rarely used. She put Molly's car seat in and left to get the kids. When they got back, Mark said they had a new car, and it was nicer than their mom's old one. "Dan, I'll pay you for the car." "How much do you want?" Carmen asked. "Just drive it. You need something better. It's a good car. I'll keep it in my name and pay the insurance. It'll save you money." "What if we don't stay together? What if I move?" "Are you thinking of moving?" "No, I was just wondering what I'd do with the car if you kicked us out. I'm sorry." I couldn't believe this was our first fight over the car. "Carmen, I promise you'll always have a car. I'll put it in writing if you want. I was just worried about you in that old car. I want you safe and here with me." She kissed me, and it felt good. Molly looked at her brothers and said, "Mom just kissed Uncle Dan." It was a thank you for letting us use his car. "No, it's your mother's car now. She kissed me because I gave her the car." Carmen kissed me again. "Okay, everyone, time to get ready for dinner. Should I cook or should Mom drive us to McDonald's in her new car?" "McDonald's!" everyone shouted. Update. I was at the store on Friday while Carmen was at work. My kids, Brad, Janice, and Mandy, came to see me. "Dad, we need to talk. Can we go to your house for a bit?" they said. "Sure, go home. I'll be there in a few minutes." I knew what this was about and was ready. When I got home, they were all in the living room. "Dad, this is about Carmen and her kids," Brad began. "Seriously, Brad, you drove 2 hours for this? What did Carmen do to make you dislike her so much?" "It's not that we dislike her," Janice said. "One day you're helping her, and the next she's living here with her kids. Your car is gone too. Did you give it to Carmen?" "As my kids, I'll explain. But I'm disappointed in all of you." "Dad, I think Carmen is using you," Brad said. "You're lonely, and she meets your needs. You fell in love, and now her kids are taken care of." "Crap, Brad," Mandy jumped in. "I know Carmen better than you. She loves Dad, and he loves her. I'm here to support them." "Brad, if you weren't my son, I'd knock you off your chair. What should I have done when Carmen needed help? Give her money? Ignore her? I did what I thought was right." "Dad, are you saying you've never had lovemaking with her?" Janice asked. "No, we haven't. Not that it's your business, and I'm thinking of asking Carmen to marry me." "What?" Brad said. "You hardly know her. She has a lot of baggage and 3 kids. She's closer to my age than yours. You all have your own lives. I've found someone I care about who cares about me too. I have a big house to share. Why are you against it?" "Okay, Dad," Brad said. "Let's say you love each other. Do you really want to start over raising 3 young kids?" "I love those 3 kids. They remind me of when you and I used to play, Brad. Molly hugs me and sits on my lap like you two did when you were little. They're great kids, and I can make a big difference in their lives." "Dad, you're seeing things too positively. They're not your biological children. Do you really want to spend the next 20 years raising kids that aren't yours? What do you think, Janice? Should they be my biological kids? I don't know. I love you, and you'll always be my father. But can you raise someone else's child? I don't know, Janice. Would you have loved me if I wasn't your biological father? Would you consider me your father if I wasn't? You're my father, and it's too hypothetical. You've always been there for me, so I'd still consider you my real father. But what does that have to do with raising Carmen's kids? Hold on, I have something to show you. I brought out the DNA tests. Your mom and I kept some secrets. It might be a mistake to show you, but you need to understand. I love Carmen's kids and know I can be a good father to them. I handed them the DNA results. What is it? Janice asked. These are your DNA results, Brad and Janice. They show your siblings with the same biological parents. But Mandy's results are different, meaning only one of her parents is the same as yours. Mandy started crying. Are you saying you're not my biological father? No, Mandy, I'm not Brad's or Janice's biological father. They were all shocked. What? Brad said. You've always been my father, Janice cried. Is that why you asked about my father? You are my father, no matter what the test says. I love you, Dad. I just want you to be happy with Carmen. I'm so confused. Brad asked, Are you going to tell us about our biological father? First, Brad, know that I have always considered you and Janice my children. Nothing has changed except what you know now. You are my son, and Janice is my daughter. It's not just blood that makes a family, it's love and compassion. I planned to tell them about their biological father, but I wanted them to know I always loved them like my own. The past with their mother was over, and I didn't want them to know we were going to divorce. Your mom and I married young. Both Harvey Kittle and I loved her. Harvey also loved Mary, got her pregnant, and they married. I married your mom and was very happy. Later, your mom told me she had married Harvey, and we all stayed friends. Your mom got pregnant with you, Brad, and then Janice. After Janice was born, Harvey died, and your mom became depressed. She confessed you two were Harvey's kids. I was shocked, and we split up for a month. I missed my kids, so we talked and decided to stay together. Your mom became a wonderful wife, and I loved you both as my own. Then Mandy was born, and she was definitely mine. We lived happily until your mom's accident. Dad, why did you take the kidney test if you weren't my biological father? Brad asked. I hoped and prayed I was a match for you, Brad. You were my son, and I would have given you my kidney in a heartbeat. Did you take a match test before Brad went to the hospital? Janice asked. No, it was expensive, and your mom had already told me the truth. There were no surprises. When I took the test, I knew the results. By the way, I have the test results of all your families. Brad, you and Gail are the biological parents of your children. Janice, you and Rob are also the parents of your children. Your mom was a great mother and wife. Let's leave it at that. I'm sorry, Dad. I was thinking more about us than about you and Carmen, Brad said, starting to cry. Brad, in situations like this, people often worry about inheritance. I think you're more concerned about that than about me and Carmen. You three will always be in my will, each getting a fair share. I'm disappointed you haven't shown compassion for Carmen and her children. Janice hugged me, saying she didn't believe the test, and that I would always be her father. I hugged her back. Just as I started to hug Mandy, Carmen pulled up. Well, looks like we're all going out to dinner, unless you want to tell Carmen why you're here, I said. Carmen walked in. Hi, everyone. What brings you all here? Mandy thought quickly. It's my last day off from home, and we decided to go out to dinner. Great. Give me a minute to change out of my waitress uniform. Kids, talk to Mandy, Janice, and Brad while I get dressed. Molly hugged Brad. Hi, Brad. I like you. Brad looked at me, realizing what I meant. Mike asked Janice, Did you bring your kids so we can play? We're learning to share our toys better. No, they're home. Maybe you can visit after Christmas, Janice replied. Can I, Uncle Dan? I've never been to their house. We'll see, Mike. It's still a couple of weeks away, I replied. Mandy asked Mark what was new. We bought a new car, and Mom kissed Uncle Dan. Everyone was looking at me, but Carmen saved the day. Yes, Mike. I kissed him twice for letting us use the car. We're using it now to go to dinner. Come on, kids, back in the car. Uncle Dan will drive, so you all sit in the back. After dinner, Brad apologized privately. I'm sorry, Dad. I shouldn't have questioned you. It's okay to wonder, Brad. It's just how you did it. If my actions bother you, let's discuss them until we understand each other. He smiled when I said father and son. Later, I talked with Janice, too. I wanted my kids to know I was always there for them. I'm still unsure if telling them was right, but it's done. Mandy asked if I could babysit so she could shop with Carmen. I gave them a list and money, asking them to store the items for me. I wanted to buy the kids bicycles since they could now ride them in a safe neighborhood. I asked Carmen if she needed money for shopping. "No, I'm just buying for you and the kids for Christmas. I got $300 when my friend sold my old car." She was too proud to take more money. She wanted to give the kids nice things without spoiling them, which wasn't easy. I borrowed Carmen's car to take the kids shopping. She laughed. "Just be careful and don't eat in it. I only got it a few days ago." We visited Santa and took pictures. I told the kids we were shopping for Mom for Christmas and gave each $20, explaining it was only for her gift. "Keep it in your pocket and only take it out when you're ready to pay," I said. The kids initially looked at expensive things, so I took them to a kid-friendly store. The clerk helped them find items within their budget, and I asked to be notified if they needed more money. The kids worked hard to find the perfect gifts for their mom. Mike asked if I could lend him $5. "Uncle Dan, Mom loves unicorns, and it costs $25. I'll give you the difference if you wash my truck." "Deal! Thanks, Uncle Dan." Mike ran to buy the unicorn. Mark was looking at movies. "Mark, you're supposed to be shopping for your mom." "Mom likes Titanic and Shrek, but I don't have enough for both." "Take them both. Here's the extra money. When Mike washes my truck, you help him." "Thanks, Uncle Dan. Mom will love them." Molly couldn't find a gift she liked. "None of them smell like Mom," I whispered to the saleswoman. "White diamonds." "Sir, it's $50. She only has $20. "Tell her it's on special for $20 and I'll pay the difference." "Molly," the saleswoman said, "I have a bottle of perfume that smells like your mom. It's our last bottle and costs exactly $20. Molly smiled, pulled out her money, and bought it. We picked up our purchases and visited Santa again. I asked the kids to help me find a gift for Mandy. She was going to England, and I wanted to buy her new luggage. The children were eager to help, and I pretended to need their advice as we looked at the luggage section. "This way, Uncle Dan. The suitcases are here." "Thanks, boys. Now I need a set with 5 pieces." They found a set with 5 pieces of luggage. "I want to help, Uncle Dan. What can I do?" Molly asked excitedly. "You can pick a color for Mandy." Molly chose a bright pink set, but it only had 3 pieces. She kept looking and found a dark blue set with 5 pieces. So we bought that one. We stopped for lunch and then went home. The kids hid their gifts for Mom in my office. They put Mandy's luggage on her bed with a Christmas card signed by all 3 kids. When Mandy got home, she saw the luggage and was thrilled. She hugged and thanked them. The next few weeks flew by with work and the kids' school activities. We decorated a Christmas tree for the first time in 3 years, making the holiday season special. Mandy went to England, and we planned to visit Janice and Brad the day after Christmas. Christmas preparations were hectic, but our evenings were wonderful. We watched Christmas programs together every night. I bought Carmen a few things, including a gift certificate and an engagement ring. I also got her a hot red nightgown. Christmas morning, the kids were excited to find presents under the tree and in their stockings. Watching them open gifts and seeing Carmen's joy was heartwarming. Carmen got her favorite movies from Mark, a unicorn from Mike, and perfume from Molly. Molly said, "Mommy, that was the last bottle, and I just had enough money." Carmen smiled when she saw the $50 price tag. I got nice gifts from Carmen. She said Mandy helped her pick them out. I had hidden bikes for each child around the house, and their happiness was priceless. Molly and Mark got training wheels, but we knew Mark wouldn't use them since his older brother didn't. While the kids played, I gave Carmen a big box with hot nightgowns. "Wow, what made you buy this?" she asked. "This comes with it," I said, handing her a small package. She cried when she saw the engagement ring, and I asked her to marry me. "Why, Dan?" "Why?" "Because I love you and want you and the kids to be with me always. So, is the answer yes?" "Dan, the answer is no. Please hear me out. I love you, but we've only known each other for a couple of months. After the holidays, things will go back to normal. I have a proposition." "Okay, I'm listening." "I want to rent out our rooms and give you $200 a week. I want us to live as a family. If in 6 months you think it's not working, we'll make other arrangements. I need you to be sure and see that I truly love you. All I'm asking for is time. I'm not going anywhere until you send me away." She handed the ring back and kissed me. She asked to keep the nightgown, hinting that we should take our time and make sure marriage was what we both wanted. I could live with that, hoping it would bring us closer. The kids played with their toys all day. Despite the cold, they wanted to ride their bikes, so Carmen and I bundled up and watched them. In the afternoon, Mandy called from England to announce her engagement. We congratulated her and wished her a Merry Christmas. That evening, we watched A Christmas Story together, and the kids thanked me for the best Christmas ever before bed. Carmen took a shower, and I could smell her perfume from the hallway. She appeared at my door in her new nightgown, asking to come in. "Dan, I love you, but we need to postpone the wedding until we know each other better. Can we start tonight? Will you make love to me?" She smiled as she walked in, and we spent an unforgettable night together. In the morning, she was asleep with Molly. I made coffee and prepared for the day. We had breakfast and then headed to Janice's for Christmas dinner. Brad and his family were there too. We exchanged gifts, and I was touched they included Carmen and her kids. Mandy explained our tradition of not buying gifts for adults, but Brad mentioned Gail thought a sweater would look good on Carmen. Later, Brad asked if I had proposed to Carmen. "I did, but she turned me down," I said. "What? I can't believe it. She loves you, Dad. What happened?" "She thinks it's too soon. She wants to make sure we're making the right decision and wants to contribute financially. She doesn't want handouts, but a loving relationship. So we're giving it time." "Wow, Dad, don't lose her. She's special." "Time, Brad. We'll give it time." Life continued, and we formed a family. Carmen and I shared cooking duties and managed expenses through a joint checking account. Major purchases were discussed beforehand. Though I usually lunched at Joe's, I'd wait for Carmen to join me. We functioned like a married couple, minus the fights, enhancing everything with our love. Mandy observed our closeness, but remained silent. As Mandy's wedding neared, she asked Carmen to be her maid of honor, bringing tears of joy to Carmen's eyes. Although she considered Molly for the flower girl, she opted for one of her nieces instead. The lead-up to Mandy's wedding was busy. She had just graduated, and we were caught up in planning. My girlfriend was a bridesmaid. Fortunately, the weather allowed us to open the pool, keeping the kids occupied while Mandy and Carmen handled wedding preparations. I remained nearby. As the wedding approached, I pondered my relationship with Carmen. I adored her kids, and they adored me. I had a surprise planned for Carmen at the wedding, as we hadn't discussed marriage since Christmas. On the big day, I donned my tuxedo. Brad and Rob were in the wedding party, alongside Janice and Gail. Everyone was dressed up, and the ceremony was imminent. Carmen, as a bridesmaid, was busy. I sat with her kids in the front row, instructing them to behave. I would walk Mandy down the aisle. As the music played, Janice walked down the aisle, greeted softly by the kids. Gail followed, receiving the same greeting. When Carmen came next, the kids excitedly greeted her, prompting her to quiet them. The flower girl and ring bearer, Janice and Rob's children, followed, with the kids waving at them. As Mandy walked down the aisle with me, tears of joy filled our eyes. Molly's exclamation of, "Wow, Aunt Mandy looks like a princess," drew chuckles and a smile from Mandy. Then I took my seat. Glancing at my family, I felt immensely blessed. My daughter Janice, daughter-in-law Gail, beloved Carmen, daughter Mandy, and future son-in-law Ross. Brad and Rob stood with them, while my grandchildren played their roles. At the reception, Carmen joined me for the first dance. "I love you, Carmen," I said. "I love you too, Dan. Are you serious? Do you really want this?" she asked. "Dan, I mean it deeply," she replied, kissing me publicly for the first time. Later, it was time to toss the bouquet. Brad urged Carmen to join since she was single. Mandy threw the bouquet right to her. The garter toss followed, and Ross handed it to me, saying, "This belongs to my father-in-law." Everyone, including Carmen, was curious. She sat down, and I, on one knee, slid the garter up her leg. Reaching her hip, I pulled out a wedding ring from my pocket, still on my knees. "Carmen, after another 6 months surrounded by family and friends, I propose to you. Will you marry me?" Silence filled the room as everyone waited for her response. Then, from the crowd, Molly stepped forward. Seeing her tearful mother, she urged, "Say yes, Mommy. Dan, I love you wholeheartedly. I'll do anything to make you happy. Yes, I'll marry you." Cheers erupted. Mandy approached Carmen, and they both cried. There likely wasn't a dry eye in the place, including mine as I kissed my bride-to-be. Now happily wed, Carmen left her job at Joe's Diner to help run the gas station and convenience store. She's well-liked, making the workplace feel more family-oriented. We're considering adoption, a decision we'll make together. Molly already calls me Daddy, while the boys sometimes switch between Daddy and Uncle Dan, perhaps to confuse their friends. Reflecting on life, I wonder how knowing about Harvey Kittle or if Annie's accident hadn't happened would have changed our family's path. Life's fragility and the impact of early mistakes weigh on my mind. Snuggled with my new wife on the couch, We watch our new family play on the floor as we enjoy a love story on TV. Mark's Christmas gift, Titanic, brings us together except for Molly, who tends to doze off halfway through.